So when you finish whole books, you cultivate the habit of engaging with ideas more thoroughly. And that's important too. Even when the ideas are, in the end, you don't agree with them or you don't like them, or, that happens too. But at least you've taken the time to go through the whole process of it. Well, there is a fair bit of conflict on the internet, to say the least, and quite a bit of outrage. So let's talk about something else today, because, it's another day. We can talk about something else from time to time. And today I wanted to talk about, I've really buggered this up because I was going to say, I want to talk about reading, but after I just said there's a lot of conflicted bits and pieces on there, the book that's at hand that I'm reading at the moment is bloody Plots and Prayers, which is literally about politics. Hang on, let me grab a different book. Righto, here we go. Something a little bit more upbeat as my example book. The Old Book of Joy. Now, if you haven't read this one, this is actually quite good. Obviously, it's the Dalai Lama speaking with Desmond Tutu. And I don't know how old it is. It must be a few years old. It's quite good. And today, in case you haven't worked it out, because how could you have? I've literally said nothing yet. But today, we're talking about books. We're talking about reading books. Boom. I'm sure I'll allude to it in the title of the video when I put it together. Excuse the construction noise, as always, and as has been the case through the entire lockdown. There are renovations happening on every corner of this place where I live. So, fantastic. You can enjoy the sound of grinding like I do from 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. every bloody day. But it doesn't put me off from reading books. Oops. Shake, shake, shake. Doesn't put me off from reading books, and I think that reading is a really great way to disconnect from, your bloody phone and the internet and Facebook and all the fighting and all the craziness, to learn some stuff. There's a bunch of reasons why I think reading is really important, and so I would like more people to be able to feel like they can sit down and do some reading, because it's great. But I talk about it a fair bit. I share the books that I read. I sometimes talk about the books that I've been reading. And people have asked me, not hundreds of people, I'm not going to pretend it's hundreds of people, but a few people have asked me or expressed their concern that they struggle to concentrate or get through books or do these things. And I thought, okay, that's fair enough. I get it. Our attention spans are a little bit shorter these days, and we're used to a little bit more dynamic kinds of entertainment. And there's very little sitting on your own, just reading book type activities, apart from maybe meditation. And that's fair enough. So I get that. I've got a busy brain as well, and I just sort of run through a couple of tips around reading that have helped me and helped a few people that I've spoken to and sort of tried to help along. And maybe they'll help you too. And maybe you'll get involved and love to do some reading. So step number one is that I think it is really, really important that when you pick up a book that you intend to finish the book and you really go, I'm going to finish this book. Half reading books, it's not like a cardinal sin, and nothing terrible is going to happen if you only half read a book. But if you kind of only ever half read books, you don't know like what's left in this second bit. You don't know what gems in there, what magical nugget of information. In some books, the whole thing is tied together in that last few pages. It just makes the whole thing make sense and gives it clarity and understanding. So I think that it's important to read entire books, even if you're not loving it. You don't have to read it all in one go. I sometimes have other books, sometimes, right now, in fact, I have books where I'm at various stages through the books, and sometimes you need a little break from them, just like you might have a break from the Real Housewives of Atlanta to watch the Real Housewives of somewhere else. I don't know the names of the places. I don't watch those shows. But, you want to mix it up because you get a bit sick of the same people or the same things, and you don't want to throw it in the bin, but you want to come back to it later, and that's fine. You can do that with books too. But it's a really great habit to get into, of finishing books. Ben, I'm talking to you. Finish your goddamn book, mate. And another sort of thing that I think is maybe more important now than it's been for a very long time is that if we cultivate the habit of finishing books, then we're also cultivating the habit of engaging with ideas until the fully considered idea is sort of talked about, expressed, and resolved the way that the author or the generator of that idea intended it. a lot of work goes into writing something like this. People think about it, they review it, particularly things that aren't self-published. They are edited, they're looked over, they are refined. And we've got to get out of the habit of just like pulling out random one-piece fact things like they do on the internet, or people love to do, put in a meme or just pull out, and then just say, this arrangement was so fundamental to our survival that children as young as 6 months have been shown to have a clear preference for toys that reflect helping rather than hindering. And just yank that one sentence out of context and just build a whole theory of whatever around it, which is detrimental definitely to public discussions, but it's also detrimental to the way people understand things. So when you finish whole books, you cultivate the habit of engaging with ideas more thoroughly. And that's important too. Even when the ideas are, in the end, you don't agree with them or you don't like them, or, that happens too, but at least you've taken the time to go through the whole process of it rather than little dot points and things like that. So your comprehension in general improves, as well as your sort of understanding in general. And as your understanding improves, this is kind of a bit meta, but your understanding of understanding improves. So you can start to see when people are not really engaging with ideas for a long time, or they're not really thinking about it in a logical way, or there's no consistency, or there's a lot of sort of contradiction or hypocrisy in what they're saying, which is really obvious when you read whole books they avoid that. It's like the sins of writing to put those things in there, but is almost mandatory in internet arguing. So I think there's real positivity in finishing books, in grabbing books, reading them, finishing them, engaging with the ideas, reflecting on them and doing that. Now, having said that, I started a thing that has absolutely gone off. There's been at least 4 posts about it. The Not Viral Challenge. The Not Viral... My mouth is a bit falling asleep. Is that how boring this is? The Not Viral Challenge, which is essentially just to read a whole book and then write a little bit about the book, because it forces you to, 1, do something before you post about it, which is important. People post about stuff that has nothing to do with doing anything. 2, you have to read something from scratch. You can't read an old one and then post about it, or you can't post about something you read ages ago. So you got to say, I've just finished this. This is what it's about. You have to take a minute to try and explain some of it and understand that it's really hard to write a little blurb in 2,200 characters. It's 2,200 characters on Instagram about like a book that's however many hundreds of pages long. So I'll just pull out a few learnings, but I'll also understand in that process that I'm leaving a lot on the table. There's a lot more in here, which, I don't know, might be the case for lots of little ideas. They're just little highlights, leaving stuff out, leaving out nuance and sophistication and understanding. So you do that, you post it, you read a book, you post it, you say Not Viral Challenge, and we promote finishing things, understanding things, engaging with ideas for a long time and for a complete time, and then reflecting on them and trying to convey that information to other people. All important skills that seem to be getting lost at the moment. And as a little aside, if you've made it this far in the video, there's a link in my Instagram bio to Booktopia, and if you click through that and then buy some books, the Just Be Nice project gets a little kickback, which is fantastic. It's a little affiliate link for the Just Be Nice project. You can click through there, do it, click through the link, share the link, buy the books, read the books, fantastic. But I hear you say, I kind of struggle to read books. I don't really enjoy it that much, or my brain runs away with me, or I find it hard to do. Okay, great. Well, not great. I mean, I'm sorry that's the case. I really wish that you could just sit down and read and it wouldn't bother you. But let's talk about some strategies to engage with reading in a way that helps you also develop the skill of reading a little bit more and get it back under your belt. So I'm assuming you can read. So this is obviously for literate people and for people who struggle with literacy. And if you are someone who is engaging with this video and you do struggle with literacy, you want to reach out. There's resources that can point you in the direction of to help you improve your literacy, and I'm more than happy to do that. But if it's more of like a concentration thing and I'm kind of get bored of it and my brain goes a million miles an hour, there are a few things you can do. I think importantly, when you're starting, one important thing you can do is set aside a period of time that you're going to read in. As in, it's it's like 1:40 now in the afternoon, and so let's say at 2 o'clock I've got I'll put down that I'm going to read from 2 until 2:30, and because I know I'm going to read until 2:30, and I've cleared that time in my mind and in my diary, that it's okay if I'm drifting off in that time, or if my attention wanes. That doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm sitting there and I'm engaging with the process of reading for 30 minutes, and I've allowed myself that time. So I can't sort of in the middle of it be like, oh, the washing, because I've given myself half an hour to read, not do the washing. So set aside a little bit of time, anywhere sort of from, you probably want at least 15 minutes, but it can be from 15 minutes to hours long if you really want to, but hours of reading might be challenging if you struggle. So you make that time, you go, I'm going to do this time. In that half an hour, you turn off your notifications for everything. No notifications on your phone, whatever is on your computer. So you turn your speakers off, or you close the windows so they don't go like whoop whoop when you're trying to read. Turn off all your notifications. Leave your phone somewhere else in another room. You don't need it. It's 30 minutes. Nothing's going to happen that urgently. Just put it in another room. Turn it off if you want. Definitely just put it somewhere else. Do not disturb, airplane mode, whatever. Put it somewhere else, and then sit down with your book. Now, I'm a kind of cup of tea vibes kind of guy. I'll get a cup of tea. I'll maybe put a blanket on my legs like an old grandpa. You know, I'm going to hang out. I'm going to do that. Set a little scene that's not full of distractions, that's not got heaps of people running around doing stuff. You can read in cafes and stuff for sure, but if you're struggling with concentrating, then ideally at the beginning you want to be in a place where like you've got kind of a bit of quiet and not too many distractions going on, because it's easy to be like this all the time when you've got distractions in front of you. If you want to put music on, music without lyrics, just like instrumental music, don't have lyrics because they're like a whole nother stream of words going in your ears that can distract you. And then when you start reading, if you're one of those people that sort of feels like they get carried away, or it sparks a thought and then you go off into la la land, or you're reading and because you've settled and quiet for the first time for a lot of us in the day was when we sit down and read or something, that all of a sudden your to-do lists start popping up, the things you start remembering things. Your brain does that weird thing when you're not concentrating on particular things, that starts helping you remember stuff randomly. Have a notebook. So when you sit down to read, have a notebook with you, have a pen, any kind of pen. It can be this kind of pen. This is one of those ones with like, it's a little bit like kind of like a texter. This is an art line pen. It's a good pen. We can have one of these pens, your classic old Bic pen. You can have this pen, the uni ball. I mean, whatever. You can have whatever pen. That's the beauty of it. Whatever pen, whatever kind of notebook you want. And if you just have it next to you, as the thoughts come into your head that are distracting you or pulling you away, you just write them down. Just write them down. You got the book, and I'm reading, and I'm like, oh, that's right. I've got to send flowers to so-and-so. And then I'll write it down. Get the pen out. Flowers to so-and-so. Keep reading. Don't put the book down. Don't need to. Book's in my left hand. Pen and pad just on the right hand side. I can just read it. I can just do it. So something happens, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's interesting. Let's go for this. Write that down. And when you're doing that, you're getting those thoughts out still, and you're giving your brain permission to relax about them because they're on a bit of paper, so you can get to them later, and they don't rattle around and they won't distract you. And then the other thing that I like to do, and this isn't what everyone does, some people highlight in books, sometimes people write in the books. I don't do that for several reasons. One, I like to sort of maintain the integrity of the book. I don't know, it's just like a weird OCD type thing. I just like them to look neat and clean, and I don't like dog-eared books, and I don't like when people earmark books and stuff like that. I like to look after them. Plus, they're an investment. I've spent quite a bit of money on books in my lifetime, and I'd like to keep them. Two, I like to lend books, so I lend them out. So if you've got all my notes and stuff in them, one, it might be distracting for the other person reading it, but two, it means I don't have access to those notes while the book is out. So I also take notes in a notepad of the things that I find interesting, or the poignant passages, or the thoughts that it sort of brings up for me, and I write them down, and so that I can keep track of them, and I note the page number. So if there was that quote from before, here we go. Every day is a new opportunity to begin again. Every day is your birthday. Page X, the Book of Joy. That's how I would write that quote down in my notebook, and then I'll be able to reflect on that when I'm like, what was that quote? It was something about every day is a birthday, blah, blah, blah. And I go into my notebook and I find it and I know where it is. And sometimes they're indicative of broader passages that are worth reading again, or that I use for work, or that we use for research or whatever. But I find that really, really helps. And then I have these long kind of archival pieces that I can go through and reflect on the books that I've read and the thoughts that have come up as a result of reading those books. So there's my hot tips. Find a spot, pick some time, just relax, finish the books completely, take a notepad with you, write your thoughts down as they come up so that you can keep concentrating, and keep reading until you finish the book. And you can decide whether you didn't like it or not when you get to the end. Some books redeem themselves right at the end, and so it's definitely worth hanging in there. But if you do that, then you cultivate the habit of reading, which is fantastic, learning, engaging with ideas in a long way, long form learning, which is so critically important now more than ever. And it gets you off the bloody phone, it gets you off the internet. It's a fantastic way to do things, a fantastic way to learn about stuff. It's a fantastic way to engage with new worlds and ideas and thoughts and things that don't all have to be fiction, non-fiction, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, whatever's your flavour, can be Twilight if you want, whatever it is. Get amongst it, pick a book, read the whole thing, #NotViralChallenge, get amongst it, gift books, borrow books, lend books, love books, look after each other. And obviously if you've got any questions, recommendations or anything like that, whatever, reach out. I'm around. You can hit me up. Love to talk about it. More than happy to. Love talking about books. So get amongst it. Let me know what you think and what you're reading. And you know, if you need some motivation and you need a little pep up, I'm cheering for you to finish. And keep trying to find new ways to engage with ideas in a productive manner. And eventually we'll be out again, living our lives in the real world. And when that happens, keep reading. Keep finding half an hour every couple of days to sit down and just plod through a book. It's the best. Look after each other. Look after your books. Look after the people around you. And as always, just be nice. And I'll see you a bit later on. Thanks for tuning in, team. #NotViralChallenge. #go to the link in my Instagram bio and buy some books. Boom. Woo!